I'm Byron Ryan.
I'm Tommy Pavia.
I'm Katie Metcalf. I'm Paula Princess Panda. And I have entered the Flex Zone.
Promo code STORM15, FlexZoneSubs.com. Get 15% off your purchase. Entering the Flex Zone this week, I'll be interviewing a man that knows his way around the squared circle and went by the alias of the Highlander, Johnny Walker. During his pro wrestling career, he became the co-founder of the Old School Wrestling Alliance in Cornelia, Georgia. Alongside his career in the ring, he pursued his love for animals, owning his own pet shop, Pets Gone Wild, and created Animals Matter, Inc., and is a member of the Citizens Emergency Response Network. Clint Eller, you have entered the Flex Zone. How you doing today, sir?
Man, fantastic. I'm so excited to finally get this interview. We've been trying to set this up for a while.
Yeah, talking to you before this interview, we know each other from a long, long time ago. And I figured,
long time ago.
Yeah, you've been in the business for like 20 years, so I figured we'd run into each other one time or another.
It's just a matter of just naming names and associations. It's like the 7 Degrees with Kevin Bacon. Wrestling's the same way. Everybody knows everybody.
Now, what were you like as a child? How did you discover your love for both reptiles and pro wrestling?
The reptile thing was weird. I was very lucky to have 2 good sets of parents. My stepdad grew up on a farm in South Georgia, and we lived on a farm. And so he was just very respectful of, you don't kill black snakes. If you leave snakes alone, they'll leave you alone. My real father can't see one on TV without getting sick at his stomach. He was petrified of them. I was always kind of a nerdy kid, and I loved dinosaur books, and I loved reading about the Loch Ness Monster. And I don't know, it just developed. And when I was 15, I started dating a girl who was into snakes, and she got me this corn snake. That was like 1985, man, and I was hooked. And then wrestling, I mean, that's what we all did. I'm 48 now, and we just grew up watching wrestling. You know, it came on Saturday nights, and you stayed up all night and watched it. And I grew up with guys, you know, watching like the Minnesota Wrecking Crew and Mr. Wrestling number 1 and 2 and all those guys. And my kid brother, who wrestled under the name the Red Hot Chili Pepper,
I remember him.
To go to wrestling school. Yeah,
I remember him.
A little bitty guy.
Yeah.
And he wanted to go to wrestling school, and he said, I'll pay your way if you'll go. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And ran a lot of shows, was trained by a lot of guys, started with the notorious DOG, who you know. Mm-hmm. Learned a lot just in the ring, working around with guys like Murder One and Colt Rivers and guys like that, just being in there with them as a very green guy, but I picked things up pretty quickly. I have this big personality. I like being in front of people, and it so it just kind of fit, you know?
Yeah, and I didn't know this, that you have skills in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and combat sports as well. Did that come along the way as you were growing up, or did you find that out later in life?
Mom's way of keeping us out of trouble was keeping us involved in stuff. So we started in 1978 doing Taekwondo, and I did that for a long time, and then started wrestling in high school and being a nerd, playing Dungeons & Dragons, met this Kung Fu instructor and started taking in Kung Fu in his garage. And then we started teaching the neighborhood kids different stuff. Then he met a jiu-jitsu guy, so we started doing that. And this was way before MMA was big. This was back when they were no holds barred, no weight limits, you know, like UFC 1 and stuff.
This was a time of blood sport. I remember watching that movie. Yeah. It blew my freaking mind.
Oh, yeah, dude. And that's what everybody wanted to do. Who knew that it was going to be so big now back then? But I have a lot of wrestling, a lot of different martial arts. I've always loved it. I think it not only helped me in the ring, you know, I used a lot of martial arts stuff, and there weren't a lot of martial artists in it back then. And so I used a lot of kicks and things that transferred over, which made it look good. And also kept guys from getting too loud in the ring with me. Everybody was always pretty cool in the ring with me.
Now, where did the name, the Highlander Johnny Walker, come about?
So, do you cuss on this show?
Yes, fuck yeah, I do.
Cuss. Okay, good. All right, I just want to make sure. I do a lot of interviews with schools, so I got to be careful. So I'd wrestled a few shows, but it was never my intent to be a wrestler. And I was actually selling T-shirts at the IWU. Red Hot Chili Pepper was wrestling. Mm-hmm. And do you remember the Beatniks?
Yeah, I do. I don't remember their faces, but I remember the names.
One of the Beatniks had gotten hurt, and Chad Chili Pepper told him, my brother can wrestle. So they come out and like, hey, we need somebody to fill in. I'm like, okay. And all I had was my martial arts gi in the car. So I wore my red martial arts gi, and they called me Kung Fu Joe. My whole stick was just getting my butt kicked, right? Yeah. And that was my whole thing. I got to just get the crap kicked out of me because I was green. I was super green. But the fans liked me. They knew me as the security guy and the T-shirt guy. So the fans were kind of into me. And I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I didn't wrestle again. And they were like chanting Kung Fu Joe. So I started wrestling as Kung Fu Joe, and I was actually in the back with Murder One. It wasn't Murder One back then.
Homicide.
Homicide. So it was me and Homicide and Don Lewis and a couple other guys. The Austin Powers movies were big, and I had this crazy Scottish accent, so I was doing Fat Bastard. I was like, oh, get in my belly, he ate a baby and all that shit. And Murder One's like, man, has the fans heard you talk? And I was like, no. And he goes, we need to get you a kilt. And I was like, I got a kilt. And he goes, all right, I got a new gimmick. Bring it next week. And I don't know, man. Murder One was like, you're going to be the Highlander Johnny Walker, funky talker Johnny Walker. And that was it. It was born.
Clint, it's crazy, man, how all these memories are flashing back. I think I remember you perfectly. We were at a high school or something for IWU. And I remember before the show, I think we were sitting outside and we were talking. And I can just envision how you were as a youth, man. But a lot has changed. I want to know your mindset as far as exploring these other indie wrestling organizations. Now, as a businessman in professional wrestling, you kind of want to make some money. You know you're not going to be rich in pro wrestling. Did you look over some of these organizations before you headed out on the road to make sure that they were legit and they backed their word, so to speak?
Well, it's a lot different now, you know, and I get tired of hearing all these old guys, oh, you ain't got respect for the business, you don't respect the business. And most of the old guys are as big a buttholes to deal with as the younger guys.
Yeah.
You know, they don't respect the business anymore. We ran into that with the OSWA. We wanted to run a kid-friendly show, real light, big on characters, and we took a beating for it, but we persevered. I mean, we were drawing heavy back then. But back then, it was a true brotherhood. You had 4 or 5 guys. I traveled with hardcore production guys. I traveled with Homicide and Rain Man and Jimmy
Rain
Ray,
Man, holy shit.
Yeah.
Rain Man, holy shit.
That's my boy right there, man.
How's he doing?
He's a good man. Every once in a while, I hit him up on Facebook. He comes to town once in a while. He's doing great, man. I think he's still down in Florida. He's genuinely one of the best men in the business I ever met. I have a big place in my heart for Rain Man. I call him a kid because he was a kid when I met him, but he's a grown man now. He's awesome, man. I love him. But we traveled in groups. So back then, man, if somebody called, and everybody paid back then.
Right.
You know, WCW was big. If you put up a poster that said wrestling, it didn't matter who was on it. You'd fill the building.
Guys didn't work for free back then.
I know. It's crazy. But if you look at when it got to where you couldn't make money in wrestling, when WCW died, slowly but surely got to the point where it was harder to get buildings, harder to draw. There's still some guys that pay, but even then they don't pay much. Or you got guys that'll pay the top 4 or 5 guys. And it's funny, you see promotions and they're talking about, oh, this promoter doesn't pay and that promoter doesn't pay. Well, they're only paying like the top 2 or 3 guys. What's the difference? It's a different game. We didn't worry about what a show was like because we'd go in 4 or 5 guys, and if it was a great show, if it was straight up, we'd have a good time. If it wasn't, we'd leave or we'd wrestle each other and get out. It was just a different world back then.
Now, you say you were the co-founder of the OSWA, and that's Old School Wrestling Alliance, down in Cornelia, Georgia. What did you learn from running a pro wrestling organization, and how hard is it to turn a profit on the indie scene?
To be honest, talking about the profit's hard for me because I never had anything to do with the money. Bobby Popham owns the gym. He always wanted to do a wrestling show. I was working for him. We had these great ideas, and we just implemented them. And we drew pretty good in the beginning anyway because we were in a small town. We were really doing very kid-friendly, very PG. You know, every show says, oh, we're kid-friendly. We were truly a PG show. It still is truly a PG show. So we drew pretty good, and the trick was we didn't have to rent a building. So the bills were already paid.
Nice.
So I think he did okay. There wasn't a lot of money to be made in the indies anymore when you're drawing 150, 200 people, and then you start taking out comps, and then you start putting in advertising. It's hard, but I think he did okay. But it was definitely, it's different running one than it was just being the guy in the back. I always helped with the medical stuff, and I would always put flyers out. I always got a good push wherever I went because I would draw fans because I would go out and I would advertise myself, man. I would sell tickets. If you said you sell tickets, we'll give you a couple of bucks per ticket, I'd make a living because I'd sell tickets, man, to anybody who'd listen. But I was always good at self-promoting. It's kind of what I do with my business now. But I think you can make a little bit of money in the indies, but I don't think anybody in the indies is getting rich.
Is it a mistake to pull in legends from the past or some big names that are going on now, bring them to your indie organization and having to pay them quite a chunk of change to just stand around and sign autographs and take pictures? You think that's a mistake on some organizations?
I think that's really a double-edged sword. You have some guys that have money and do that because they want to hang out and say, oh, I got to hang out with so-and-so, or I got to rub elbows with so-and-so. And I don't think for most any promotions it works. My thought, whenever we would sit down and talk about bringing in outside talent, and you'd say, okay, these two guys want to come and work, they want $50, $60 a piece, right?
Yeah.
So are these guys going to draw? If a guy wants $100, is he going to draw 10 tickets?
Right.
And our situation was weird because we had some wrestling fans, but most of our fans were just fans of our show because we did superheroes, all the stuff that the guys in the back talk about doing, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we had lightsabers in the ring? We bought battle-ready lightsabers and had a lightsaber battle in the freaking ring. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we were doing. So we didn't have normal wrestling fans. So to us, very few people from the outside drew what they were worth.
Clint, isn't it because most of the legends, and all due respect to the legends, no disrespect involved, but they're not really going to go out of their way to promote the event. They're just making sure they show up.
Yeah, that was going to be my other point. You could bring in Slim J. Slim J came and worked for us several times. Slim's a local guy. He's been in the business a long time. People came and watched Slim J. He was worth the money. I mean, paying Slim J to come to your show, especially in Georgia, everybody loves him. Everybody's going to come. We took the chance on a couple of guys, the 605 crew, and brought in Chris Nelms and Justin Burnham.
Yeah,
now,
Chris
a lot
Nelms,
of people come down hard on Chris. They are old school. They can wrestle. They can scrap. They are complete professionals. And if they're on your show, you're going to see your flyer. They're going to cut a promo.
Yep.
And all the guys that run with them are the same way. If you book those guys, they're going to draw because they are going to tell everybody's going to know where they're going to be on Saturday night. And there are a lot of guys don't do that. A lot of our own guys that worked for our show every night didn't do that. And to me, I'd rather bring in a guy that nobody in our area or our show had heard of that promoted the hell out of us than I would be to bring in a legend that everybody knows. But like you said, they're not going to advertise. And you figure for every $10 you pay a guy that you got to sell a ticket. And you have to really, in the indies, money's tight. You got to make sure if you're going to pay a guy that they're going to at least pay for themselves, if that makes sense.
When I was calling play-by-play over at the WWA4 with Total Protection, Mr. Hughes, no doubt about it, I used to tell all the guys that were there, the young guys, I was like, we didn't have this technology back in the 90s where I could film all my ring announcing from back in the day. I might have a couple of videos, but I didn't have any videos. I don't have hundreds of them. I didn't have the ability to share them out to the public unless I was going to their house and putting a VHS tape in the VCR. And I said, you got to be able to promote yourself now. And you talk about Chris Nelms. This guy knows social media. He gets it. And there's a lot of guys out there that do get it, but then there's a lot of guys that don't and then bitch about not getting booked on shows or not reaching the plateaus that they want to reach.
I've had promoters call and say, this guy worked for y'all. He's professional. Is he good? And let me tell you something. There are some guys that if a promoter called me, I would say, he didn't work out great for us. I'll never bury anybody. Those guys, any of the 605 crew. And I know it sounds like I'm kissing their butts or something, but dude, they were the most professional guys that ever came in our locker room. And you watch them now. I've pretty much unfollowed everybody in the wrestling business on social media, but I follow them because I want to know where they're wrestling. And you can pop on either one of their pages at any given time, and you know where they're going to be. You know who they're wrestling and what it's for. And I love that. That's what made Don at IWU. That's why so many guys who hated him stayed with him for so long, because he had the cameras and he had the stuff and he liked to show up early. He liked to use the videos. He liked to get the commercials out there. And he was one of the only guys back then that did that wasn't one of the big two.
And he had the money.
I think a lot of guys, a lot of guys stuck with him just because he paid good and he almost always gave you a good audience. And he wasn't afraid to put money out there and try to do something big. And I think a lot of promoters are just happy drawing their few and drawing the same crowd and just being kings of their own world. And there's some good ones out there, but there's some, I think they just want to get their brother and their cousin over.
Right. I was just going to say that I've been involved in big shows where there's been a lot of people, and then I've been involved in shows where it's just the family members rooting them on, and they're like all stressing out over the fact that they have nobody in the seats. When did you realize it was time to hang it up as a professional wrestler?
I stopped a while back. I had moved out to Rome and was wrestling a bunch of shows out around the Rome area and loved it. Guys, I grew up in the business where we're out there, and that was a lot of fun. And then I moved back over to this side of Georgia and had a job and had to cut my hair, and that was weird, wrestling without hair. And we just had gotten to the point where it was a bunch of drama. Social media was just coming out, and it was a bunch of drama. everybody's, I call them the chalkboard tough guys. Everybody's a tough guy because they got a W on the board, but it doesn't make you a tough guy in the real world. And I think it took some guys a while to realize social media is a real place. And it just got so dramatic. So I stepped away for a while, and then Bobby and I started back up. And when we originally started up, I wasn't going to wrestle. I'm beat up. I'm old. But then we had a special match where the big bad guy slapped me. I was the commissioner, and so he challenged me, and I wrestled. And the fans liked it. So next thing you know how it is. You can't be around it without doing it.
Right.
So I started wrestling again as the Highlander Johnny Walker. And then I'd having some help. I've got type 1 diabetes, and I was having some health problems and working a lot. And so I decided to retire. I had my retirement match. It was a great match. Retire, whatever you want to call it. It was going to be my last match. And I picked my opponent. It was so much fun. And then for weeks, I'm still helping with the show. The bad guys are beating everybody up, and the fans are looking at me like, how can you just stand there and not do something? And I had been training my best friend, Kenny Jackson, and he was ready to wrestle, but he didn't want to wrestle. He wanted to tag with me. That had been our plan. And so he talked me into coming out. So we did a tag team, and we did that for about a year and a half. We were just goofy, just doing silly stuff. I had the possessed glove of Baron Von Raschke, and I used to claw the ref and claw myself, and just doing funny, silly stuff. And then I hurt my shoulder really bad. And after about 6 months, I realized that was it. I said, I'm done. And I had surgery about 2 weeks after my last match. But it was cool. My last match, every single guy that I personally trained, except for one, came.
Nice.
And was involved in the match. And we just did it the way we wanted it, ended it, had fun, just goofy, and had a good time and ended. Well, I'd taken a little time here and a little time there, but it was the first time I ever felt like it was the right thing. Like I felt like I ended it the way I wanted to end it,
Yeah. Is there anything you would have done differently?
I think when I was younger, I would have pushed harder to make it. I was a young dad, and I had a kid, and I had a real job.
That's tough.
And I would have taken more time to work out more and push for bigger shows and maybe have made a run for it. If I'd have known then what I know now. Then later, like starting the OSWA, the only thing I'd have done different was I wouldn't have been so nice when people were running us down and talking shit. I mellowed in my old age. I kind of wish I could go back about 5 years. There are 2 or 3 guys I'd have liked to snatch up and smack around. I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't. I'd have probably done that different if I knew now what I knew then.
The thing is, though, I think you made the right move there because there's going to be haters no matter what you do. You just got to kind of block them out. And, hey, they're still paying attention to what you're doing, so whatever.
Well, they were the best advertising we had.
Right.
And to be honest, in 5 years, for 4 of those years, there was very little in the state of Georgia that was out drawing us. And all of a sudden, all the guys who were bad mouths wanted to wrestle for us because we were having fun and we were doing things nobody else would do. And it was definitely a success. Bobby and them still run, and they're going through some transitions now. It's still a great show. Shoot, right now, Northeast Georgia's the place to be. There's like 7 or 8 shows that run up here right now. And everybody that wrestles in Georgia is up here on any given Friday or Saturday. It's kind of a cool thing to watch this area grow a little bit.
Doc, I'm not feeling good at all today. I'm lacking endurance, energy, strength, and focus. What do I need to do to get out of this funk? Well, Brad, I have the remedy for you in this 16.4-ounce bottle of FlexZone Preflex. It contains citrulline malate, beta-alanine, agmatine sulfate, and betaine anhydrous to put the pep back in your step. Wow, Doc. Thanks for the Preflex. Oh no, Brad. This is my bottle. You need to head over to FlexZoneSups.com and get your green apple Preflex there. Use promo code STORM15 and you'll get 15% off your purchase. Remember, Brad, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Gee, Doc, I forgot all about that. I'm ordering my Preflex today.
This is Brad Kohler, 2-time UFC veteran and CEO of Combo Hitter LLC. And I have just entered the Flex Zone.
Now, how important is it for you to be a mentor to young people either coming up in pro wrestling or just making their way in life?
I really concentrate more on making their way in life. We do the Reptile stuff, and we lean heavy on anti-bullying. And I spent my whole life working with kids. My real job back when I wrestled, I worked at like the YMCA, and I worked at outdoor therapeutic programs working with at-risk teens. So I've done that my whole life. And I just think about the struggles I had in my life. And my life was hard growing up. I have 2 good sets of parents, but they weren't always great. And it was, like everybody, I've got my stories to tell, but if I can keep people from going through that, or keep a kid from committing suicide, or keep a kid from being a bully, or keep a kid from being bullied, in the wrestling business, to be honest, the hardest thing it is for me, and I try to be real honest, is to tell a guy, hey, I know you love wrestling and you can do great in the indies and do what you want, but you're not going to make it. I knew guys that we grew up with the IWU in that area that are still wrestling. They're my age or older. They're beat up. They're still wrestling. They haven't had a real job in 25 years. And it's like, dude, keep doing it as long as you want to do it, but get a job and be part of society. And I think that's hard for a lot of these young guys, like all these young kids in school. Everybody's going to be a basketball superstar and everybody's going to be a baseball superstar. But you got to know when that's not going to be the end all. Decide, what am I going to do when I can't do this anymore?
And you know what? The landscape of bullying has totally changed. When I was younger, I moved from Rhode Island to Georgia about 7 or 8 years old. And I was called a damn Yankee. I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about for a while. But they were talking about the Civil War, too. I said, well, we won the Civil War. I would get in fights all the time. But we'd fight with...
It ain't over, brother.
It might be a new one coming up. But it's like, I would fight with my fists. Nowadays, the world's going crazy a little bit. And it's a sad state we are in. So it's great that you educate kids on bullying. We have to learn to talk things out. Kids have to learn to talk things out, resolve problems, because most of the people I fought with, later on, we become friends.
Oh, yeah. When I was in school, somebody picked on you, you had words, you fought, everybody gathered around, 4 or 5 punches were thrown, teachers come, everybody splits up, and it was over.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember being in a fight in school with a guy, lost some, won some, but I don't ever remember going, you know what, I think I want to do that again. It was like, okay, we came to blows, we're done. Nowadays, I was talking to a principal, and I was like, the biggest problem is these kids don't have an outlet for this. So they get bullied and bullied and bullied and bullied. And then the bullies bully, but there's no repercussion. If the kid getting bullied punches the bully,
he gets in trouble. Yeah. And plus social media, too.
Tolerance crap. Yeah, just no tolerance. And then media loves it. Media loves turning the bullies into the victim. We're in a really scary time right now. And I think a lot of this stuff is just social media calls. Social media is an amazing thing, but it's also a cancer.
It's opened your eyes to what's going on in the whole country and the whole world. Back in the day, you could go ride your bike down the street at 10 years old and go wherever you wanted to without worrying about some pedophile creeping up or your parents freaking out over it. It's like kids can't even go outside anymore, and they're glued to their damn tablets or TVs. And that's a good thing for a little bit of time, but you got to get out there and you got to experience life a little bit. And speaking of experience in life, you opened up your own pet store. What year was that in?
Man, somebody asked me that the other day. I'm trying to think. It's probably been 13 years ago. And it was just weird. I had all these animals in my house. And it was like, I could probably make a living at this, literally. I had gotten hurt on the job, figured out what I was going to do. And so I was like, we'll open a pet shop. The first 5 years, very successful, probably the most successful non-chain store pet store, the most successful pet store in the state for 5 years. But then the economy went bad. And when the economy went bad, I found that I was working 7 days a week. I was paying the bills and paying the help, but I wasn't making any money. I was never home. And I had a little girl coming up, and it just wasn't my thing. But I realized that I was in schools doing programs. I wasn't even at the shop anymore. And so I sold the shop to my cousin and just continued to do the education programs, which is really what I love. What we do, we have the nonprofit called Animals Matter, Inc. Yep. We're a 501(c)(3), thanks to Mr. Tim Holman. A little shout out there to my buddy. Then we're called those Reptile guys, and it's so weird. The pet store was Pets Gone Wild, which was a grand name, and I literally came up with that name way before I had a pet store, watching those Girls Gone Wild commercials. Wouldn't it be funny if we had a pet store called Pets Gone Wild? It was like a frog in a bikini. I had a girl I had a poster in my shop. It was a frog in a bikini, and it said censored, and it said Pets Gone Wild. But this girl reopened a pet store in this town after I'd sold mine and named her pet store Pets Gone Wild and put a Z after the pet instead of an S, and was kind of ruined my reputation, kind of a crappy place. And so we were trying to come up with a new name, and everywhere you go, it's those Reptile guys. It's those Reptile guys. And it just kind of stuck. Like the community kind of gave it to us. Aren't you those Reptile guys that bring the snake? It's Animals Matter Inc. presents those Reptile guys, but what we do is unique. So we do rescue and rehabilitation of reptiles. Everybody loves puppies and cats. Not a lot of people do what we do. So we've got everything from snakes to spiders to scorpions, frogs, turtles, lizards, any of the creepy crawly stuff. And we rescue them from bad situations, and we rehab them, and we get them ready, and we go to schools. Well, of course, we talk about the animals, but what we really do, it's kind of a trick. We're actually an anti-bullying program. We take these animals and we tell their stories about how this animal was abused and how somebody hurt this animal and how it was bullying, and they bullied it because of what it looked like. And then we tie that into the kids, and I do things like, so raise your hand if you've ever been picked on because you had glasses. And, they raise their hand. And we go through this whole gambit, and next thing you know, the kids get it because you're giving them this animal, this poor, defenseless animal that's picked on because it doesn't have legs or because it's got a long tongue or because it's got a long tail. And they can equate that to their own selves, and it sticks. It's the weirdest thing. I never realized that part of our mission was what was sticking the heaviest until the last few years, when I've had people say, man, I love your anti-bullying thing. And I'm like, my what? Because we were doing it because it was something we believed in. It wasn't originally our mission. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do that every show. We love it, man. The kids really grab a hold of it. And all of a sudden this light bulb went in. I'm concentrating on the wrong thing.
Was that the Pets Gone Wild show that you're talking about?
Yeah, it was the Pets Gone Wild show, and then it became those Reptile guys.
Okay, so we transitioned.
Just transition names. And, of course, the show evolved, but it's still me with animals out there having fun in front of kids. Well, I do adult birthday parties. We have a very broad audience. We do assisted living homes. So I do everything from, 4-year-olds up to, 94-year-olds.
And that's important too, Clint, because I would get so depressed as a firefighter going to the nursing homes, even seeing my grandmother who passed away a couple of years ago in the nursing home. They have nobody coming to visit them most of the time. I'm not saying all nurses, but there's a lot of nurses that don't really care. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
So it's good that you get involved with them and give them a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it was the most scared I'd ever been. The first assisted living home I did, I'm waiting for them to come in, and I'm scared to death because I'm thinking, these people know everything. I mean, how am I going to tell somebody who's 85 years old, who has seen all the things they've seen, anything that's going to interest them? And then it started, there were 5 of them. I was like, wow. And then one of them said, hold on, I want to go get my buddy. And next thing you know, I've got a room full of these seniors, and they are laughing and having a good time and asking questions. And I had this little old lady, she said, I'm talking 92. She said, can I hold that big yellow snake? And I said, yes, you can. And she said, I want to tell you that I remember seeing a snake that was about half this size, and we paid a penny at the World's Fair when I was a little girl to go in this old building, and it was like a fence, and they called it the man-eater, and we were so scared I had nightmares, and it was half this size. I can't believe how gentle this thing is. She goes, but I remember paying a penny to see something like this at the World's Fair when I was a little girl. And now I just go and see them sometimes. I just go and hang out and talk to them. They're the best group of people.
Now, how many animals has the nonprofit saved, and what satisfaction do you get when you save an animal from danger?
I couldn't even tell you the number because I've been doing it so long. Between myself, there's a reptile pet store. It's the only reptile-only pet shop in the state of Georgia called Reigning Reptiles. Cindy Moore owns it. She's great, just a great girl. They do a lot of rescue, and I do a lot of rescue and help them, and we do a lot with our own. Of our 45 or 50 animals, probably 25 of them were rescues. We've had rescued animals that were abused. We've had rescued animals that were abandoned in apartment complexes. We have a rescue snake right now. She was happy, and the guy loved her, but he was overfeeding her, and she was obese, and eventually would have killed her. And we're like, let us have her, and we'll get her weight down, and we'll use her. So we get all kinds of different cases. But to me, it's a tie between that and the anti-bullying of what I love about what I get to do the most. I've got an 18-year-old black and white tegu. When we got him, was almost dead. That was 15 years ago. He was 3 years old. His little fingers were broke. His arms were broke. I mean, he was malnutrition. He should not have lived. And now, 15 years later, kids come up and go, where's Harley? Did you bring Harley? You get him out. And 25 kids are gathering around, and he's smiling at them, and he's sticking his tongue out, and they love him. And you think, this animal should have died. And if it hadn't been for not just me, I've got an amazing group of volunteers.
Yeah.
If we hadn't gotten him when we did, he'd be dead. And these kids wouldn't know the joy they see with him now. So it keeps me going, man, on days where there's not enough money to feed everybody. And I got to choose between eating a bowl of cereal so I can buy mice for the reptiles. Those are the things that keep me going. I just remember, what they look like when I got them, and the kids' faces when they see this animal who should have been dead and is now out in front of them doing tricks and hanging out. It's super important to me, and it keeps me going every day. And I see it in my 9-year-old daughter that she has that passion. And so it's worth every minute of it to me, good and bad.
Now, you volunteer for the Citizen Emergency Response Network. What is that like? Are you on call for certain instances? If you're available, you go and try to do your job? How's that like?
It's kind of funny. It started off, it's what's left of the Georgia militia. Now, with all the crazy things in politics, when people hear militia, they think about like these redneck guys in the woods with their guns.
Hey, boy.
Like, you know, wanting the zombie apocalypse to happen and the government to turn on. And I don't even get into all that. But it wasn't that. I mean, all these guys were sworn in by the lieutenant governor. Georgia has the oldest militia in the country. We were the first militia.
Wow.
So way back when the country was first founded, Georgia had the first citizens militia. But militia has such a stigmatism, and we couldn't get membership, and nobody would train us. And so myself and a buddy called Dan, who was the leader, was like, hey, let's change the name. And what we were doing, we were going out and volunteering to work security at football games and doing cleanup projects, and after storms going out and removing trees out of elderly people's yards. I mean, we weren't out there shooting guns and hiding in the woods in camo.
Yeah.
But the minute we changed our name to CERN, all these venues opened. The county now brings the group in and teaches us to run the 911 center in case of emergencies. FEMA has opened up to us, and all their training is now free for our members. We've done missing persons where we went out and combed the woods for missing elderly guys. We go after big storms. We all got chainsaw trained. So after the big hurricane we had that actually hit up here and did all this damage, we got called in, and we're down cutting tree limbs off people's houses and off their car. And it's an amazing group. I'm not as involved as I used to be just because I'm busy with my own thing, but I still get the alerts, and we still go to the meetings. And it's neat because it's a group of kids all the way to older people, and they mix in their skills, and literally it's a community network. They love doing things in the community. Big volunteer group is what they are.
Now, how has social media played a role in your success as a business owner alongside saving animals as well? And which platform works the best for you?
I'm a Facebook guy. I'm not very computer savvy. And the trick is you have to be careful what you say. Facebook is pretty much the only advertising I do outside of doing the shows. And we've got Those Reptile Guys Facebook page. We've got the Animals Matter Inc. Facebook page. And then we've got my own personal one. And they're all tied in. And I used to be very politically motivated and things, and you can't do that. But Facebook is definitely the way to do it. You could rescue an animal and you can tell somebody about it, and they're like, oh, that's pretty amazing. But you should take a picture of that animal before and after and show them giving it the bath and giving it the medicine and all these things, and it attaches people to that. And when people become attached to something, they want to be around it. They want to contribute to it. I have learned that if I go to a group and say, hey, I want you guys to donate some money to our nonprofit, they will look at your social media.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So you have to be very clean, and you have to be very middle of the ground on everything. And I'm not a middle of the ground guy, man. If you want to know my opinion, ask it. I will give it to you. But it's super important that you don't do that. Facebook, for me, has been the best. I'm learning that Instagram is great and how to tie those in.
Yep.
I just literally, first time I've got somebody making me a website, but it's really only to have a place to put donations. I don't even know if people use those much anymore.
Was the website thereptileguys.com?
I think there's thosereptileguys.com and animalsmatterinc.com, and they're going to be tied in, so you can go to either one and get the same place. And it says under construction, but we're getting ready to open up. We're just putting the final touches on it. I'm very excited about it, actually.
How important is it for you to be humble in life and in business and educate the youth about being humble as well?
It's very important. And to be honest, I talk to kids all the time about it's important to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like with my daughter, she's beautiful, little 9-year-old, blonde, thin, very smart, very sweet, but she has a little bit of me in her. Honestly, the hardest thing for me in the world is being humble. I'm not great at a lot of things, but the things I'm great at, I like to tell people about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes across as bragging. If you don't sell yourself, nobody's going to buy you.
Right. And plus, if you love something, like I love this podcast, I tell everybody about it. It's not me bragging about it. Now, if I do brag about it, I bust my ass trying to make this thing happen. So who cares?
Exactly. So with animal rescues, I have a bad habit of wanting to tell people that you're a piece of shit. You can't do this to an animal.
Yeah.
You know what you were doing. It's one of the reasons I sold my pet shop. I got to the point where people would come in and go, oh, we don't know what happened. It just stopped eating. I was like, well, when's the last time you fed it?
Yeah.
Oh, like 2 weeks ago. Well, you weren't in here. You didn't come in here and buy the food. Where are you buying the food? And I was just calling people out on that shit. I'd gotten burned out and I got mean about it. And in a way, they deserved it, but it's still a hard place to be.
It's a
but
fine
being
line.
humble is important.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, I say it every day, at least once a day. I am amazingly great at two things: being a father, and you give me an animal and put me in front of an audience, I'll make them love that animal no matter what it is. Those are the two things I do better than anything else. And I don't feel when I'm talking about that I'm conceited, but being humble is super important, because we live in a society where you can go on Facebook and you can tell everybody you're the best in the world, you're the baddest in the world, you're the toughest in the world, you're the biggest, all this stuff. And whether you are or not, people are watching it and they're judging those words. We're just in a weird place in the world that a lot of people don't like that stuff anymore. Being humble is hard for me, but I try to sell myself and be very big about the things I do without it coming across as being a conceited jerk or thinking I'm the best. There's a lot of people that do what I do that are really good. There's a lot of people that do what I do that are really bad. I consider myself one of the best. And it's just because I'm passionate, man.
Well, Clint, this is When It Rains, It Pours question of the show. It's brought to you by FlexZoneSups.com. Put in promo code STORM15 on FlexZoneSups.com and get 15% off your purchase. It's that simple. How true is this quote from William Wallace to you? Men don't follow titles. They follow courage.
It's completely true in everything. That goes right back to the being humble, man. If I try to lead by example, and it's funny, I've got a lot of teenage volunteers and people that volunteer for me and help me. We saw an entire elementary school, and hearing these kids say the things I do, like, no, why do you hate this snake? It never did anything. You only hate it because it doesn't have arms, but you're judging it on its looks, and that's what people do. And hearing them mimic what I say to get someone past their fears or to get their point across, it proves to me that I don't have to say I'm the greatest. It doesn't matter if I'm the greatest. I am putting my passion into this, and the kids around me are getting it to the point that they're using my quotes to get their points across. They don't follow me because I'm the best. They follow me because I'm genuine, and they know that I love what I do and I'm genuine in what I do.
I think when I interview a lot of different people and it comes across, if you're just in something for the money, it's never really going to happen. But if you're genuine, people can see bullshitters a mile away. So you're not going to last long. And to be honest and care about children, that's important. You talk about being a great father. I consider myself a pretty damn good father too. I love spending time with my daughter, and she's only 3 years old. So it's important that I'm there for her, educating her, and making memories that will last a lifetime.
Exactly.
Clint, it's been great having you on the show, man. Good catching up. Blast from the past, man. Do you have any shout-outs you want to make before I let you go?
I do. I want to shout out to Tim Hallman, because if you got that guy in your corner, you got somebody that's got your back, and I appreciate that. My brother Kenny Jackson, Bobby Popham, all my volunteers for the show. If you guys want education programs at your school, kids' birthday party, there's nobody better than us. We have amazing animals. It's an amazing show. And I'm going to give a shout out to Flex Zone Pre-Flex. Have you had this stuff, the pre-workout?
Oh, yeah. I get the tingling sensation. Woo!
Yeah, I just mixed some up because I got to clean all the animal cages. Man, this Pre-Flex stuff is the best stuff I've ever had, man. If you want some pre-workout, get the Flex Zone, use that promo code, and get the Pre-Flex, man. You will not regret it.
All right, guys, that wraps up another great episode of Enter the Flex Zone. I want to thank Clint Eller for coming on the show. If you want to follow him on social media, you can do so on Facebook at Those Reptile Guys and also at Animals Matter Inc. Check out both of his websites, animalsmatterinc.com and thosereptileguys.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Clint Eller. You're going to want to follow Flex Zone Sups at Flex Zone Sups on Instagram, and FlexZoneSups.com is the website. Enter promo code STORM15 at FlexZoneSups.com and you get 15% off your purchase. It's great to run your own business and be successful doing so. But what if it's taking away time from your family, ultimately leading to burnout and a change of course in your journey through life? Clint was a hard worker when it came to his business, Pets Gone Wild. However, he realized that with success comes time lost. Clint discovered a bigger purpose in his life when he founded his nonprofit Animals Matter Inc. and his show, Those Reptile Guys. Clint now makes a difference in his community by educating the youth about bullying and spending time with the elderly while showcasing the animals that he saves and loves. Some say money makes the world go round, but for Clint, having an impact on his community and making a difference is more rewarding than the almighty dollar. All right, Flex Zone fanatics, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do so on Instagram at BradStormLanou, on Twitter at BradStormVO, on YouTube at Brad Lanou, and my business, Voices of the Storm Recording. Click like and follow my journey. We're on every platform known to man. We are on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. I want you to leave a review on iTunes. If there's anything in particular you want to talk about, your business, your life, anything, I'll pick a review each and every week and read it out loud on the show. And this one comes from AS-C1991. Brad and his team put together a podcast with high production value and great content. I feel energized after listening, ready to take on the world. As host of my own podcast, The Rapport Advantage, I note the time and energy that it takes to put together a show. Brad knocks it out of the park. Keep up the good work. There you have it. Go follow Alex Swire Clark's show, The Rapport Advantage. Check it out. He's everywhere as well on all the platforms, so follow his show. And remember, everyone, if you're having a bad day, if you're having a good day, if you're having a I don't give a damn day, clench the fist and punch every day in the face. And I'll see you the next time we enter the Flex Zone.